All right, so this video is just going to demonstrate nested loops. And I kind of feel like I tell my high school students that this first of all, this isn't the easiest thing to figure out. And I didn't figure this stuff out my first or probably even second semester as a college student. How to sit down and type these out and think through them. It did take me a while. And to be honest with you, I probably didn't even get these type of problems when I was in college. So, but what we're going to do is we're going to print these kind of triangles using nested loops. And I tell my high school students when we do these, I'm like, especially the intro class, by the time they're in AP, I figure that most of the kids in the AP class can probably figure these out. Like they might not be able to just sit and type it out, but they could go home and spend a couple hours thinking through these and hammering them out. But we have these, triangles that are printed through stars. And so the way I like to think about these are rows. So row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then columns, column, 1, 2, 3, all the way down to, there's 10 rows and 10 columns here. So in order to do this, we're going to use nested loops, nested for loops, and kind of work through these. Now, there's different strategies, but I like to think about these as rows and columns. So we're going to have nested loops in here, all right? And so this is going to be my row, my outer row, okay? So as I go down, row 1, I've got 1 column. Row 2, I've got 2 columns. Row 3, 3 columns. So here's row 1. I'm going to start off, I'll say int row equals 1. And row needs to be less than or equal to 10. And then we'll do row plus plus. Okay. And then this one will be int col. And we'll say, because we'll start off with 1 column, and we'll say that the columns need to be, now this is where it gets hard thinking this through. See, in this one, there's 1 row, this is row 1, and then there's 1 column. This is row 2, and there's 2 columns. So columns need to be less than or equal to row right here. And we'll say column plus plus. And then we'll do a cout on our star, and it will be on the same line because, well, I'll show you in a second. And then this one will be a cout, and we'll do an end L. Okay. Let me see if this one works. I think it should. And I've written these a ton of times, so again, if you're sitting here watching going, how did he figure that out really quick? Well, I mean, I've been doing this a long time. So anyway, that's the first one. So yeah, we start basically for each row, you're going to print the same number of columns, all right? And so that's why, like, when you get to here, columns is 1. Right here, row is 10, and so you'd start with 1. Is 1 less than or equal to 10? Yes. And then you'd print your 1 star right there, and then you'd add 1 to it, and then it would be, is 2 less than or equal to 10? Yes. So you'd print your 2nd star, and you'd keep doing this until, columns actually hit 11. Is 11 less than or equal to 10? Nope. So then you'd end it, and that would be done here. But that's what it's doing each time. So when I think about nested loops, I like to think about it almost like, and I don't know if I demonstrated this in a previous previous video, but nested loops to me are like, I don't know, mountain bike gears. Okay, that's not good. All right, so when you think about like gears, and sorry about that, I wasn't connected to the internet, so that's why it wasn't popping up. You know, you've got your outer gear that, you know, for every time this outer gear spins, your wheel doesn't spin very much, all right? But the inner gear, you know, you have, this thing spins a lot of times because it's smaller. So this one's spinning a lot. So the idea of your nested loop is that you got an outer gear that runs once, and your inner gear is spinning, you know, right here as many times as needing to fulfill, you know, your Boolean condition until it's false, right? So your inner gear is going to run all of your processes, and then that will get done, and then you go to your outer gear, and then you run it one time, and your inner gear is going to run as many times as it's needed. So, like, if you're thinking of something physical to think about with nested loops, think about this as your big outer gear, and these as your inner gears. And so all these, this for loop needs to spin as many times as possible until your Boolean condition is false, and then you go through here. Okay, so let's start thinking through how to do this one. Excuse me. Okay, so we're gonna have our for loop and another for loop, and same kind of thing, a little bit different setup, but we're gonna have an end-L here because I'll end the line, and this inner one will have a cout, and it will have our star. Okay, so let's see here. There are 10 rows, and so I'm going to just do the same thing. I'm going to say int row equals 1, and I'll say row is less than or equal to 10, row plus plus. All right, so on this one then, our columns start off at 10. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say int col is equal to 10, and I'm going to say, so row is equal to 1, but column is 10. So I'm going to say my column is greater than or equal to my row, and then I'm going to subtract 1 each time. Okay, so this would be, you know, this would be first time through row is 1, 1 is less than or equal to 10, so this is 10, and 10 is greater than or equal to 1. So that would print this one time, and then subtract this, and then this column would become 9. Is 9 greater than or equal to 1? Yes. So it would print the second one, and then it would go all the way down to here, and then it would do an end-L and come back up here, and row B would become 2. Okay, is 2 less than or equal to 10? Yes. So then column becomes 10 again, and then is 10 greater than or equal to 2? Yes. And so then it would just do, you know, this one, and then so on and so forth. So I think that works. Let's see. Okay, cool. Then I'm just going to do cout, L, cout, and L. I'm going to do that down here too for our next one. So let's try this. Okay, so that gives us our first two kind of triangles. Now we get into the hard stuff. And it's not that hard, it's just... So here you've got white spaces, okay? So you got white spaces and then stars kind of attached onto the end. All right. So this does get, you know, definitely a bit more complicated because you now need 2 loops inside of a for loop. I'll show you why. So we're gonna have a for loop, then we're gonna have another for loop, and then we're gonna have another for loop, and this is gonna be our cout end L. Okay. So we're gonna. This one's gonna be our row, and this is gonna be our columns. But our columns are gonna be, you know, a blank space, and this is gonna be our column space. Okay. So again, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna say int row is equal to 1. Row is less than or equal to 10. Row plus plus. And then I'm going to say int blanks is equal to, now we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm not doing it right, I should start off here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 white spaces, okay? So our blanks are going to be equal to, now this is where it definitely gets really confusing, and this is where, like, I wouldn't expect you guys to be able to necessarily figure this out. Like, this takes some, you know, you really got to kind of practice this stuff for a bit to kind of figure this out, but you got to develop the algorithm. And so the way I thought about this is that there are 10 spaces, 9 white and 1 star. So 10 minus the current row is 1. So 10 minus 1 is 9. Because think about it, you're going to have 9, then 8, then 7. And as your white spaces, you know, 10, and then minus 2 would be 8 white spaces, and then minus, you know, when row is 3, you'd have 7 white spaces. Okay, so, and then we would get to here, and we would only have 1 white space. So I'll say blanks needs to be greater than or equal to 1, and then we'll do blanks minus minus. So, you know, you're subtracting out your blanks, you know, to lower them. So you got it greater than or equal to 1 until it's not, and then you're done with that. So this will be a cout blank space, okay? All right, and so then for this one, again, the star is equal to the row we're on. So 1 star, row 1. 2 stars, row 2. 3 stars, row 3. So I'm going to say int col equals, we're going to start at 1, and then column needs to be less than or equal to row. And then we'll do col plus plus, and we'll say cout star. Okay. So let's run this. Okay, we got that. All right, so again, like figuring out this algorithm, you got to really kind of think through mechanically in your head, and it's really not that hard, but again, like I didn't think like this when I first started programming. This kind of took me some time to work through and problem solve through what's really happening here. Again, you know, we're starting off with 10, but we want an algorithm, 10 minus 1. And then when row becomes 2, 10 minus 2. So I'll have 8, you know, blanks. Then row becomes 3, 10 minus 3. So I have 7 blank spaces and so forth, okay? All right, so last one, and I need to remember to do my cout end L to give it some spacing there. And this is going to be kind of similar to the last one. We're going to have the same kind of general setup here with a for loop, an outer for loop, and then 2 inner for loops. And then a cout and L to give us our line space. Okay, so same thing here. I'm going to say int row equals 1. Row is less than or equal to 10. Row plus plus. Okay, so for this one, we aren't going to have any, we'll have our blanks here, but we don't want to print a blank the first time. So I'm going to say int blanks is equal to 1, and I'll say blanks must be less than the row that we're on, blanks plus plus. Okay. All right, so row is 1 and blanks are 1. So is 1 less than 1? No, so we don't print a blank. All right, so blanks is 1, so is 1 less than 1? No, so this one will not print, okay, the first time through. But then, once we get through the column stuff and then we print a new line, then we go back up here and row is 2. So blanks gets set to 1 again, and is 1 less than 2? Yes, it is, so print a blank space. And then blanks would become 2. Is 2 less than 2? No. And so we would be done with that. But at least it gave us that first blank space. And then, row would become 3, and blanks would become 1, so we would print, 1, and then 2 blank spaces right there, okay? So then we get to here in our columns, and again, our columns, which is our stars, will be 10. So int col equals 10, and we'll say col needs to be greater or equal to the row, okay? And we'll say col minus minus. So the row is 1, so is 10 greater than or equal to 1? Yes. And so it would print, your cout star, okay? And then, we subtract 1 and become 9. Is 9 greater than or equal to 1? Yes. And so we print a second star and so forth. Okay, so I think this is correct. Let's try running this. Aha, looks good. So anyway, this video is almost done, but if like I said, I tell my high school kids that this kind of separates the people who want to become programmers and the people who because I'm sure there's a lot of people in this class, especially at the community college, there's a lot of cybersecurity people majoring in cybersecurity, and they want to get a taste of program, but they don't necessarily want to major in program and become programmers. And I totally get it because it's part of your degree. But if you're really wanting to become a programmer, in my mind, this is like one of the first separation stages of, okay, you really want to learn this, you need to kind of dig through how to do all this and understand how to do this, okay? And so, again, this took me many hours to think through how to do all these. And so, I would suggest, that you guys put some time into this if this is really what you kind of want to do. So, anyway, this video is done.